Part 3. Death and Dying. Guidelines for Spiritual Advisors. I remind the patient of the suffering of this world and the joys of the Pure Land to help strengthen his or her vow to be reborn into there. The spiritual advisor should also enumerate and praise the patient's good deeds, merits, and virtues. This will help the patient to be happy and free of doubts, certain that when the time comes to die, he or she will, thanks to his or her good deeds, vows, and practice, be reborn into the Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss. 2. It is important to remind the dying person to cease thinking of wealth and property, as well as attachments to family and friends. 3. If the patient has written a will, very good, but if not, it is best to counsel against writing one at this time. The advisor can also advise everyone to refrain from gossip and distracting conversations, as they could rekindle the patient's attachment to this world, which is detrimental to the patient's desired rebirth. 4. When relatives and friends come to visit, they should be discouraged from becoming emotional in the patient's presence. If they wish to help, they can stand to the side and chant Ama Tuofo aloud. Explain to the visitors that crying at this time could distract the patient from the desired rebirth in the Pure Land, and result in the patient being subjected to much suffering. 5. The patient should be counseled to practice generosity and give away personal effects to those who need them. Also, the patient can purchase Buddha images, sutras, and other Buddhist materials, and request that they also be given away. This will help the patient to increase his or her merits and reduce bad karmas, and thus help to facilitate a good rebirth. The good advisor should keep these general guidelines in mind, but be ready to improvise according to the situation. Supportive Buddha name. Chanting. Supportive chanting by family members and Dharma friends is crucial when a patient is on the verge of death, because at that time, he or she is weak both mentally and physically. In such trying circumstances, it becomes increasingly difficult to focus on chanting Amitabha. This is why supportive Buddha name chanting is so important. 1. To help focus the patient's thoughts, respectfully place a statue or picture of the standing Amitabha Buddha in front of the patient where it can be easily seen. Place a container of clean water in front of this image and some fresh flowers in a vase near it. Lightly scented incense, or even a smokeless variety, may be burned. A strong fragrance or excessive smoke might cause the patient to have difficulty in breathing. 2. Those who come to practice supportive chanting should remember that the patient, who is in a weakened state, requires adequate fresh air. If too many people are in the room at one time, the patient may have difficulty breathing and become agitated, resulting in more harm than good. Also, people should pre-arrange their chanting time and silently take turns, so that the chanting can continue uninterrupted. Each session can last about an hour. 3. According to Master Yingwang, the 13th Patriarch of the Pure Land School, the short chanting form of Amitabha should be used, so that the patient can easily register this name in the most subtle consciousness, at a time when both mind and body are very weak. It would be wise to ask the patient which one is preferred, Amitabha or Namo Amitabha. In this way, the patient can comfortably and silently chant along with the group. To go counter to the patient's likes and habits may destroy his or her concentration. People should not chant too loudly so as not to expend too much energy and shorten the time they can chant. On the other hand, they should not chant in too low a voice, or the sound might not register in the patient's mind. Also, they should not speak to one another while in the room. Chanting should neither be overly loud or soft, too slow or too fast. Each utterance should be clear and distinct, so that it can be heard clearly and penetrate deep into the patient's consciousness. One caveat: If the patient is too weak or is in coma, he may have difficulty hearing the chanting. In such a case, someone should chant close to the patient's ear to help the patient to maintain a clear, steady mind. 4. With regard to instruments, it is generally better to use the small handbell with its clear, limpid sound, as it can help the patient develop a pure and calm mind. However, this may not apply in all cases. If possible, it is best to ask the patient in advance what is preferred. If some details do not suit the patient, we should adapt to the circumstances and be flexible. After the patient dies, relatives should not cry in the presence of the patient, especially immediately before and after the death. Doing so can cause the dying patient to develop thoughts of attachment which can prevent the much-sought rebirth and resultant liberation. 2. It is vitally important not to touch or move the body of the deceased person. Thus, people should wait at least 12 hours, and preferably 24, before washing and dressing the body. 3. Family and friends should concentrate on chanting in all earnestness and without crying for at least 12 hours. This is to allow the patient's most subtle consciousness adequate time to leave the body. If, during this period, anyone touches the body or cries, the deceased may still experience feelings of pain, sadness, anger, or self-pity, and sink again into the realms of suffering. 4. During the minimum 12-hour period, 24 hours is preferable. If people can remain chanting near the deceased, so much the better. Except for chanting, nothing should be done. 5. Funeral arrangements should be simple and modest, without unnecessary expenses. Only vegetarian food should be provided, for serving meat or fish will burden the departed with more karmic obstacles, making liberation that much more difficult. It is important to remember that even those who have already been reborn into the Pure Land may still be affected by the behavior of family and friends acting on behalf of the deceased. Living will. To my family and all those concerned with my care, being of sound mind, make this statement as a directive to be followed if for any reason I become unable to participate in decisions regarding my medical care. Upon my death and transition into the next life, I do not wish to be reborn as a ghost or an animal. I do not wish to suffer. Instead, I wish to follow Amitabha Buddha and to arrive at his Western Pure Land of ultimate bliss. To all my family and friends, I wish to ask for your assistance so that I may not suffer, but instead remain calm and peaceful to prepare for my arrival to the Western Pure Land. In the event that I should suffer from a terminal illness to the extent that doctors foresee no possible recovery, I ask that no medical treatment be undertaken. Should I already be in the hospital at this point, I wish to be checked out and brought home. Please notify my assigned family member or friend at telephone numbers. And once home, please position me in the most comfortable, natural position in which I may rest. The assigned family member or friend will lead others in chanting Amitabha. Should I decline to the point where I lose consciousness and am no longer aware of my surroundings, the assigned family member or friend shall have full authority in making any decisions regarding my well-being. If this person cannot be contacted, please find a Buddhist master or Buddhist believer to aid in the chanting of Amitabha until the assigned person can be reached. Within 24 hours prior to and after my death, I would like to ask my friends and family to comply with the following. I do not touch or move my body, or even my bed. 2. Do not change my clothing. 3. Do not place dry ice or other substances on my body. Sandalwood incense may be burned if there is any odor. 4. Do not let a breeze blow directly onto my body. 5. Do not allow the scent of alcohol, onions, scallions, garlic, or chives to enter the room. 6. Do not smoke, cry, or talk in the room. My purpose for asking this is to create an atmosphere in which I may remain calm and at peace. The only sound I wish to hear is Amitabha, so that he may escort me to the Pure Land. If I am at home upon my death, my family should take turns chanting Amitabha for 8 to 24 hours. At this point, I will be ready to be moved, washed, and dressed. This period of chanting is the best time to assist me to be calm and peaceful. All funeral arrangements can be made afterwards. If I should pass away in the hospital, please follow hospital policy and chant as much as is allowed. During my terminal illness and within 49 days after my death, all family members should adopt a vegetarian diet. I do not wish for any killing to be associated with my death. All funeral offerings must be vegetarian. The use of alcohol is strictly prohibited. Funeral arrangements should be kept simple, and proper Buddhist etiquette should be followed. I do not wish for any unnecessary excess. Within 49 days following my death, I sincerely ask my family members and friends to seek my rebirth into the Pure Land, and to perform good deeds, such as giving offerings to the 3 jewels of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha, printing sutras, helping the needy, and so on. These good deeds will help me to attain additional good karma, and further assist me in arriving at the Pure Land. Most important is for my family to sincerely chant Amitabha. In order for me to benefit the most and to peacefully arrive at the Pure Land, the above points must be followed. This will not only benefit me, but all those involved as well. In this manner, I wish for everyone to learn and to believe in Buddhism. Thus, everyone can arrive at the Pure Land, as well. Amitabha to all. These directions express my legal right to request or refuse treatment. Therefore, I expect my family, doctor, and all those concerned with my care to regard themselves as legally and morally bound to act in accord with my wishes. Signed. Date. Witness. I declare that the person who signed this document, or asked another to sign this document on his or her behalf, did so in my presence, and that he or she appears to be of sound mind and free of duress or undue influence. Witness date. Closing thoughts. Pure Land Buddhist practice is not confined to learning about particular Buddhist principles and chanting a sutra or the Buddha's name while bowing, sitting, or walking. Our practice is the development of a calmer, purer mind, so we will learn to think and behave as a Buddha in everything we do. We strive to achieve this mindset through the previous practices as well as through less formal practice. How? By reminding ourselves daily that, while all of us have many shortcomings, we should only be concerned with our own. By understanding causality and not blaming others for the difficulties in our lives, and by realizing that all beings suffer and that only when we awaken can we truly help others to be free from pain. Ultimately, our practice will enable us to have loving kindness and patience held equally and joyfully for all. I resolve not to kill. Instead, I will respect and have compassion for all beings. I resolve not to steal. Instead, before taking or using anything belonging to another, I will ask the owner's permission. I resolve not to engage in sexual misconduct or any sensory indulgence. Instead, I will develop the mind of self-restraint and purity. I resolve not to use false speech. Instead, I will speak the truth in a wise way and at the right time. I resolve not to use harsh speech. Instead, I will speak words that benefit others and foster peace. I resolve not to use divisive speech. Instead, I will speak words that foster harmony and understanding. I resolve not to use enticing speech. Instead, I will speak sincerely and truthfully. I resolve to refrain from greed. Instead, I will open my heart and practice giving. I resolve to refrain from anger. Instead, I will develop patience and the compassion to see the suffering of others. I resolve to refrain from ignorance. Instead, I will discipline myself and calm my mind so that I can act from wisdom. May the merits and virtues accrued from this work adorn the Buddha's pure land, repay the 4 kinds of kindness above, and relieve the sufferings of those in the 3 paths below. May those who see and hear of this bring forth the mind of understanding and compassion, and at the end of this life, be born together in the land of ultimate bliss. Adi da Fat TV